Greetings of the day and welcome to this session on future skilling. I think the most interesting and the most debated of topics in these days is the future of skills. How do we get India prepared to face the future? How do we get our youth prepared to face the job market in the future? And also, more importantly, how do organizations gear their skill capability in line with the changing market requirement, which is only becoming dynamic day by day? Be it the auto industry, be it the media industry, be it the engineering industry, and more importantly, the IT industry, the skill change or the market change or even the context change is very, very, very dynamic. And organizations, as well as government institutions, as well as academia, should be able to not only map the future skills that are required, but also more importantly, create a framework and an infrastructure support that would help skill building across different levels of people. It could start at the ITI level, it could start at the diploma level, it could start at the engineering level. And also, if we have to really look at ourselves as a manufacturing industry or as a manufacturing economy, it has to start at the school level. Because if you look at advanced countries, and especially if you look at Germany, and if you look at Japan, and if you look at even Austria, which is probably one of the most advanced models in terms of skilling, I think they start at a very, very early age. And they instill that sense of pride in vocation. And that is something that we as a country will have to emulate. And also, more importantly, I think we need to look at what models will work for us, especially in the current scenario. Also, this whole virtual working and lockdown has also given a different twist to the whole skill building arena. With all this at the background, I now pose the first question to Kirti Seth as to how is the current context or how is the current scenario on skill building in the Indian context? And if you were to look at one or two areas that would require immediate attention or that would require enhancement, what would it be?
Thanks, Bala. That's a thesis, actually, if I have to respond to that question, but I'll try. The good news first, I think the good news is that I think as a country, we are very aware that this future of work is changing and future of skilling has to march alongside. So there are tremendous number of programs that are going on. And I am lucky enough to be at the cusp of, I think, what is the title of this whole top conversation, which is how can industry, academia, and government collaborate? Because I have the privilege of leading the Future Skills Prime platform, which NASSCOM and MeitY, the Ministry of IT, have joined hands to create. And the two panelists on my screen are fellow partners in crime who are supporting us big time to make this initiative a success. So this shows the spirit and the behind the whole skilling program for the future, which is coming from different directions, whether it's AICT and Dr. Buddha represents that, and whether it's TASK and Shrikant represents that. So whenever we reach out and we say this is a program we want to drive, and believe you me, the platform can do nothing if we don't have collaborations of the type that we have. So I'm seeing it living and breathing. I'm seeing it evolve. So it gives me great optimism to say that we are on the right track. The government is doing a heck of a lot around this, whether it's incentives that are being given out, whether it's policies that are being created, whether they're being done at the central level, whether they're being done at the state level. So tremendous amount of work there. Academia is also waking up and very fast. I mean, the way I've seen colleges transforming over the last 2-3 years, in spite of the pandemic, the way they are approaching this is superb. And state governments are coming in and supporting, again, very eager to be right ahead in this thing. So if what needs to be done, I think a lot is being done and a lot is being talked about being done. But where is it that we can emphasize a little more? I think is in getting the respect for the whole outcome of skilling. that if you get skilled, are you going to be considered at par with the guy who has the graduate or the postgraduate degree? Because today you may not be a postgraduate, but you can do the job and you can do it very well. I mean, today youngsters are beating veterans like us hollow. I mean, let's face it, our time is done. I think we can only help to drive this. But kids of today are far and away ahead. So if that's a message that we can drive and create avenues for this linkage of the skill and the outcome, meaning will you be able to get a job? Will you be able to start a business? Will you be able to, what can you get out of this? Will you be valued more because you have got skills? I think that's the narrative, I would say, that we really need to drive as a group and every aspect of the stakeholders who are involved in this.
Thank you. I think it's a very, very valid and probably a very, very critical question that she has placed on the table is, do we place a premium on skilled people versus educated people? I mean, if I may put it very, very crudely, I think that's the difference, or that's the single most point that she has brought out. And it cannot come from anyone better than Kirti, who is probably in the thick of things, and especially in the IT sector. Thank you so much, Kirti, for actually bringing out a very, very valid question to all practitioners in the skilling domain. Coming to Srikanth, I think one critical question that I have in mind, and that also goes to the role and the very critical play that you are at this point in time in terms of managing skilling for a state. What role do you think the state should play? And also, more importantly, being on the other side and me being on the industry side, what is the role the industry should play? Because, I mean, it is good to say that everyone should collaborate, but a specific one or two pointers, I guess, would help the audience also to understand where the challenge lies or where the opportunity lies. Over to you, Srikanth.
Thanks, Bala, for this interesting question. And thanks, Kirti, for laying the thing. I think the basic thing starts from our education system itself. Of course, I'm not talking about NEP and the outcomes that will be seen in the future. But if you look at us, and Bala, I would like to narrate a small anecdote over here. When all of us were growing up, we were playing with something called Meccano. Then it became mechanics. Then it became Lego. Now it has all become let go. So people don't do anything with their hands at all, right? So creativity and doing something. And today, if you ask me, what does the industry look at? Industry is looking at people who can use a screwdriver, not just know the definition of a screwdriver. And probably that's where the biggest disconnect is, as you rightly said, between education and skilling. The biggest dilemma for India today is we have got educated people, but not skilled people. And that's where the challenge happens. Now, what does role the government plays and how exactly this thing? I think what is important today is that everyone, in fact, I would take this one step further, while academia, the industry, the government, etc., need to partner. I think the parents also need to partner, because as Kirti rightly said, we need to change the perception of vocational skilling and education completely in India. Now, the role government can play is, for example, organizations like us. TASK was created to provide employability and livelihoods for people, right? So our concept is very simple. If you try to create skill universities, etc., you are creating another university which will compete for students, will compete for people. Instead of that, skilling should get to be an integral part of all your education curriculums itself, right? Through a platform like Future Prime, students should be able to take those programs and do it while they are at the campus itself. Now, government can facilitate such things. Now, if you look at TASK, we are on three pillars. The first one is education. No, we don't run any education institutions, but we look at the gap in the academic curriculum and try to match it with the industry, what your requirements are, and try to bridge that gap through a short-term skilling program, right? Second thing is, we create opportunities for these people to get jobs. So we shortlist. As an industry, you want people, but you want people who will be able to deliver. So we will shortlist those people who have been trained and then send you a list and facilitate them so that they can become part of your organization. So government plays that role. The third thing I think which government can really do extremely well is, of course, create an infrastructure, right, which promotes the kind of future skills, etc., which METI has already done through NASSCOM Future Skills, and we are able to give access to these people. So I think government's role is more of a facilitator to make things happen over there, right? Of course, there are so many incentives, policies, which Kirti also spoke about, exist. But I think more importantly, the role is of educational institutions, industries. Just to give you examples and some takeaways, I'm a governing council member of JNTU, which is one of India's leading technology universities. Over there, we have come up with the concept, AICT, Dr. Buddha will correct me if I'm wrong, but have come up with a program where it says you can have a major as well as a minor, right? So the minor can be done in such subjects which are purely skill-oriented. So you could be a civil engineer, right, by education, but at the same time, you could also do a course in artificial intelligence to help you, which is one of the emerging technologies that is coming up, which we have now permitted. We have also, so that's just one of the things. Another thing, if I talk to industry and I talk to you, I'm sure you would be taking interns, right, for a particular period of time. But if I look at today, large organizations, if they provide about 1.25 crore jobs, it's the MSMEs which provide 11.27 crore jobs, right? But they don't take interns because for them, it's just blocking one seat for only those months. What if we change it and do a staggered internship? So you have an intern coming from an institution across the year. So as far as you are concerned, there would be one intern working with your company throughout the year. So you are promised a human resource throughout the year. It is a win-win situation for all. We'll be able to get more students to undergo internship. You will not have to spend resources separately for only specified period, but you would have that person through and through with you. And it is a win-win for the institution also. Placements will become better. MSMEs would be able, today they don't have the wherewithal or the many resources for getting these kind of resources. But through this initiative, they can even get trained and skilled manpower. And needless to say that, more than 40% of our export GDP is controlled by the MSMEs itself, contributed by the MSMEs, which will get a further boost if you get quality manpower. So these are just some of the initiatives which can be done. Apart from that, if you ask me the top of the mind, I think what is important is for our educational institution and our industries to realize the need for industry internship for faculty members also, right? Which is extremely crucial. We have been talking about the academia, tie-up with the industry, etc. But unless and until we see these concrete steps being taken in those directions, I think it'll all be just talk and we would not be able to change. And lastly, as I said, the mindset is the most important thing, right? Now, if you look at it, when we were growing up, I think we didn't have the luxury of all these various opportunities. So if I was granted a boon, I would have been, wished to be born now with so many opportunities. And that's where the parents need to be also told. And having said that, I think I'm cognizant of the fact that the 60% of the graduates today in colleges, their parents have never been to one. So it's on onus on educator, on the industry and others to actually come up and help these youngsters understand what can be done, help their parents understand what can be achieved. And probably later on, I could take an example of this, example also. So happy to talk about it later on also.
Thank you, Shrikant. I think you have touched on very many points and each, I think, are very pertinent to the subject. And more importantly, I think they're very relevant in the current context. I certainly picked up the role of education in the whole skilling landscape, the role of academia in terms of influencing skill building, and also the role of industry in facilitating and actually supporting the skill program through structured internship programs. And all I'm seeing is the multiple opportunities that the current context throws us. And as you rightly said towards the end, it's the mindset that has to change. And more importantly, the mindset of every stakeholder in this. And very interesting that you also touched upon the parent who has to be involved in this, because even Kirti had said, many a times it is the desire to get an engineering degree or the desire to get an arts degree, which is actually precluding a lot of skilled people from even getting into the vocational space. Because we get engineers or we get BE students, and their understanding of the larger context, their ability to visualize, their ability to, if I'm going to give them an engineering diagram, the way they are able to interpret it is far, far, far from below expectations because of their context in which they are either educated or they have been brought up. Now, I'm not sounding pompous in this whole thing, but we need to be, I guess, very, very cautious in counseling at a very, very early age as to what would be the right skills, capabilities that an individual or any school student can get into, so that the industry gets a better manpower, the society gets a better human being, and more importantly, the individual is able to stand on his own and gain respect in society. I now pose the question to Chandrasekhar, and especially from an academic context. What do you think that we as stakeholders can help or can support the education system or the education framework in terms of building the building blocks or setting the building blocks for a very, very high skilling landscape?
I see that most of the stakeholders in this, working really great, and we all are already started working together. See, we are all working together to reach the destination of a developing nation to a developed nation. I think that's the way I see, and the new education policy really helped us to do it. Because in the new education policy, we are giving more preference on the industry connect, on the innovation, on the research side and entrepreneurship side. So this opened up a doors of opportunities of connecting the education system with the industry requirements. So we see the new education policy in a way that it's a pipeline churning process of connecting various stakeholders in a very smooth way. So, and we did the same. I mean, when we had a discussions with various stakeholders like institutes as well as with faculty, we had detailed discussion with other stakeholders like industries also to understand their requirements. Example, we all together identified 15 key job roles and more than 55 job roles and 15 skill sets. I mean, emerging areas which can create millions of employment for Indian students and faculty for next decade. I think, see, the minute you know your target, where to reach, I think, now we have brilliant people like, NASCOM, we are closely working with, Srikant's team. We all are working together for common cause. The common cause is to give best of the best to a student and connect them with the industry as well as on the research-oriented approach. So there is an initiative which we have taken from Ministry of Education is called Yukti. From the Yukti point of view, what we did was we have created a framework where the faculty or a student or an institute or all together come as a stakeholder and start a startup. So on the Yukti, what we did was the institute has an infrastructure, the officers or faculty has a connection, and together can come together and create a startup. And we as a government of India, we started funding them. We started helping them on a due diligence. We started helping them on a mentoring side. We started connecting them with the CAs. I think, see, the role of the government is to help and connect each other. That's what we are doing. So this is one of the platform what we created. And as you know, we in the institutes as a Ministry of Education side, we are giving them knowledge. And, and we are pretty good in that. But the problem is student is coming out of the college with knowledge, but without an industrial practical experience. So that's where we created this Industry Connect programs like Internship Portal. And we targeted 1 crore internship opportunities by 2024. Because the thought process here is, see, the industries needs to fulfill the stopgap and the student needs experience. So in order to fulfill the stopgap for any kind of industry, either it's an MSME or a SME or a MNC, you can't go through the entire recruitment process. So the best way is to recruit. I mean, it's to provide an opportunity to students by providing some stipend with experience or without stipend with experience certificate. So lots of students are interested. Example, we did internship opportunities for Indian Railways. So they are not paying anything, but more than 15 lakh applications across pan-India from the students to work for Indian Railways because the kind of an experience they receive. I mean, we can't even imagine. I'm sure if we are kids, we are still in college, we will also apply because that's a kind of opportunity, right? So that's where the learning is happening. So at the same side, Cisco recently with help of NASSCOM, we had a tie-up with them and they received, I think, more than 70,000 plus applications and they are filtering that and they started training. Then after training, they are giving them a real-time opportunities. I think we opened up the entire world and we now as a government of India from Ministry of Education point of view, we are very clear on our thought process. We want only to give the best of the best to our students, faculty, as well as our citizens of this country. So now you see the education policy. Before the education policy started, we opened up the doors with help of the COVID pandemic, maybe. We opened up, the education towards a technology enablement platform. Now, if you ask me, I see my institutes, which is on the physical presence, I see them as a digital entities, not as a physical presence. Now we are slowly asking them to move towards Wi-Fi 6. Because see, the kind of internet penetration, internet connections they have on Wi-Fi 5, so that is a bit slower. But we want to run AR-based applications, VR-based applications, digital twinning applications, because the model, the physical model, let's say the aircraft physical device or an engine model resides in Germany, and we will take a replica of a digital model of that, and our students sitting inside the institutes, they will fine-tune the processes and process in that, and they will submit back. So imagine they have a AR, VR capabilities with help of these advanced super speed technologies like Wi-Fi 6 and with help of 5G. I think, I see doors are open now, even for the school level also. Because, what we thought, see, the base foundation is to start from school. Because, that is where the mind is much open and their brain is left as well as right brain is very active. And that's the reason, they are like hyperactive and, sometimes we feel that we can't even chase them to catch them, right? So that's the way they work. So that's a right opportunity window for education ministry to get into their mind and teach them minimum 2 to 3 skills.
If I can interrupt here, Chandrasekhar, I think it's the right moment for me to probably pose a question to Kirti, especially as a representative from NASSCOM. Chandrasekhar mentioned about the new education policy, and I've been fortunate to have read it because I also am involved in a CSR program where education is our primary focus. And one of the biggest challenges that I can see in the implementation of the policy is, of course, the technology interface. And today, I think people are a lot more adaptive to technology, number one. And second is, I think one thing which very clearly comes out from what both Chandrasekhar and Srikanth says is the industry internship. Now, how do you think the industry internship can be facilitated or can be propagated? And also, in your experience, what has the industry internship program been? I mean, how has that helped organizations? How it has helped the people? If you could just throw some light on that, please.
So I don't think there is a kind of internship program overall umbrella that is being followed. And the problem that always faces students is that when they look for internships, they can't find them. And industry has the problem that it's just a lot of overhead, because if you have to get, I mean, Srikanth alluded to that. He said that, I have to put the seat aside, I have to get this intern, then I have to give him something to do, then I have to monitor what he's doing, and then he's gone. In either 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, he's gone. So in the best case, I don't think any internship is going longer than that. So that is a concern. So while there are lots of tools to help that, and Dr. Buddha talked about the internship portal that AICT has. So that is tried to, collate everything in one place. But there also, I would say, is it being used to its potential? Perhaps not. And that is the problem, I would say, the number of schemes and opportunities that are available. I mean, I can take apprenticeship as another. So maybe we take apprenticeship and internship in the same breath, because they're essentially the same thing. They're saying give the person practice, hands-on practice, exposure to the workplace and all that. So the apprenticeship scheme also is actually very good. It's what the government has. But I was just in a meeting just 3 hours before this one with the BPM industry. There were some 15 companies from the BPM world there, probably representing about an employee base of maybe, say, 300,000 people in that meeting. 4 people knew about the apprenticeship scheme. Now, and as our job as NASSCOM, we have to educate people about the apprenticeship scheme. So obviously we are talking to one person, but it's not filtering to the other person. So in my view, I have talked to these 10 organizations, obviously to the wrong person or the different person. So this person doesn't know about it. So communication is absolutely crucial. I think if there's one thing I would call out in all the work that we do is how are we communicating about it? How are we telling people that it exists? There are such fabulous things available. But again, silver lining, given COVID happened and, people started thinking of innovative ways, and Dr. Buddha talked about the Cisco internship. What he didn't mention was it's a virtual internship. So now when you look at virtual internship, it just opens up the world. You can give an internship to anybody, anywhere. So the goal is 20,000 internships with Cisco, 20,000 in 1 year. We went to AICT with the proposal and we told them that if you can give your blessing to it, then engineering colleges will be able to take it up because it will count towards the students' requirements. And lo and behold, they said, sure. And now they've said, sure. And now we're going back to them with another proposal to say, there's another company that wants to do virtual internships. Suddenly the opportunity just explodes, and it all explodes in the digital domain. So things like that are going on. I think the apprenticeship scheme also, there are state governments that are trying to say, how can we give extra benefit to, this apprenticeship scheme and make the uptake a little higher. And Dr. Buddha is raising his hand, so I'll pass it over to him.
Yeah, please. I think you rightly touched the point on apprenticeship scheme. I think the revised apprenticeship program, which has been published, I think is a phenomenal document. And I think it's a phenomenal tool to encourage skilling. I guess the onus is upon industry to leverage that and also appropriately use it in the context that it has been set.
And it makes complete business sense. It's one of those few skilling related investments that you can see the ROI immediately.
You're bang on. Chandrasekhar, before I move to Srikanth, please.
If you see the way government is working now, see, Honorable Prime Minister gave one person, the same minister handles the education as well as skill. What it really means is it's like, it's like a two eyes. You must have two eyes to create a vision. So that's where we are seeing, because, the target is same for both the ministries. And another thing is the beauty of the recent internship policy, which we have created. At the time of approving a college, we put a clause, Kirti ji. The way we establish that clause is they must have a MOU with 5 real industries. And any students who wants to take an internship opportunity with any industry, they must take a permission from the college so that they don't, they don't miss a thing. Because what happens, that we know that and we as well as ministry as well as our institutes know that the student is doing internship with XYZ company. I think, then he is also very careful, because, he will feel that, I think, I don't need to mess up anywhere at any point of time. And we extended it. I mean, the way we extended it, imagine someone wants to do a virtual opportunities. So they can do virtual opportunities, for a year length. And if someone wants to do a full-time
that's a very fair point. Fair point, Chandrasekhar. I think I will also request Srikanth to probably respond to another question that I'm going to ask. Just I have a suggestion. Now that you have mentioned that academia should have 5 MOUs before they can even be given permission, I think the same should also hold good for industry, that industry should demonstrate MOUs or agreements with academia institutions, which are maybe within their 5-kilometer radius. At least those students, if they can come, and I think that will be a big, this is all beyond CSR, I would say, because I think skilling is a core issue. It's not a social responsibility. This is a core issue. Yes, it would ultimately lead to social equality, but I think everyone has a role to play in that sense. Coming to Srikanth, in terms of especially the technology interface, and Kirti alluded to it in terms as that we are today open. Virtual working, the very fact that we are sitting in our respective homes and still be able to kind of engage and meaningfully talk to each other, I think technology has helped. How, in your experience, has technology fast-tracked or helped to fast-track the skilling agenda? And are there, I'm sure there are a great many opportunities. If you can come up with 1 or 2 good examples of that, it would be great.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Bala. I think having come from that industry itself for about 2.5 decades in the e-learning and that space, what I have seen is a great change. Earlier, what we used to talk about, online learning, etc., used to be copies of books and texts, which were actually put online and called as e-learning. I think that is one place we have matured a lot, right?
Absolutely.
Even during the pandemic, if you look at it, what has happened is people have moved away. Initially, the first couple of months, it was whatever was happening, the person used to stand in front of a board and the professor used to actually write over there as he's addressing a class, right? And then slowly they realized that actually the people who are seeing on the screens are just seeing his back, nothing else. And then they started changing, and then the whole concept of facilitation started. So I think after 2000 years of education being the way it was being taught by Socrates, right? From that time, it has been textbook education. I think today things have changed completely, where it is more of facilitation that is being done. So I think that is the very first change that has happened. You don't have teachers or sage on the stage. Instead of that, you have guides on the side. So that's one of the key things which has happened, and the change has happened over there. The second thing is, today, with the speed at which technology is changing, internet is changing and everything else, AR, VR, and XR, or mixed reality and extended reality, have become reality. Let me put it that way, right? So actually, imagine you can try out. So there used to be this, this chain of toy stores called Toys R Us, world over, where you could leave your children over there and they could try out being a policeman or wear the dress and see what to do. Similar kind of a thing if you are able to expose this person, right, in a rural district to what are the opportunities existing. Help that person understand if he's becoming a nursing aide. What does it mean? How can he actually do it? And that too by actually taking him through that experience through augmented reality or mixed reality kind of platforms, you are actually ensuring that that person is able to understand, learn, and practice as well, right? So these are some of the developments, and I'm just speaking about a couple of them, but if you look at it, everything plays a part. Today, about internships and virtual internships, when we talk about, last year, during the pandemic, we gave about 2,500 plus virtual internships itself to the students from various colleges here in Telangana. And that's becoming reality. Today, I think what is also people have realized in the academic institutions, etc., is, and all across, is you can get the best of people. Earlier, when I used to do a mentor talk, I used to take one industry expert, expose him to one college, right? So maximum it could be about 1,000 students. But using technology today, I'm exposing my entire population of students, 70,000 of them who are registered with TASK to actually go online and get exposed to those things, right? So I think a lot of such changes have happened. In fact, they've been accelerated. IR 4.0 was anyway there. These changes were expected. But, a lot of these changes have been accelerated due to that. I would probably also like to mention over here that apart from technology skilling, another type of skilling which people used to call as soft skills, that has completely changed, and now it should be called as essential skills, right?
Absolutely right.
Because industry requires it day in, day out. When you are talking on a call like this, right? Clarity of thoughts, right? Working towards the same vision of the organization. Now, all these are higher order thinking skills, growth mindset. Now, all these skills also have become important.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. And I mean, we are running short of time, I guess. I think if I were to kind of sum up the most important aspect or the few aspects that have come out, one is skilling should have a premium. And number two, skilling starts at the education level. Internship supports the skilling agenda. Technology helps in terms of its ability to scale up and also have a wider coverage. And also more importantly, soft skills require a push. And especially when it comes to the industries that are growing, be it IT or be it the service industry, soft skills, especially relationship skills, ability to converse, ability to strike a conversation. I think these are very, very critical, and we should not lose sight of this. And I will just request Kirti to have one final probably statement which covers that as an IT industry, how do you feel or how do you see that the industry can really support and help the skilling agenda for the rest of the industry, with IT being a key tool and a key player going forward?
So Bala, thank you for that question. It almost seems like I wrote that question out for you to ask it of me. Because if I look at what the Future Skills Prime vision is, so we started Future Skills 3.5 years ago at NASSCOM, which was only for IT firms and NASSCOM member firms. And that's when METI reached out and said that we have this $1 trillion digital economy vision in India. So can't you take this and take it to all Indian citizens? So that's how Future Skills Prime was born. The government funded it. And we actually have created this platform whose mission is to take this out of the IT industry to other industries. We are part of NSDC, I mean the skilling ecosystem. So NSDC is also telling us, how do you take this to other sector skills councils? because IT has to probably become a horizontal under everything. And every domain, every industry has its own nuance to how it wants to use that technology. So I think we have been tasked with a responsibility. I think it's a delightful responsibility that to take. And at this time, I think it's just right place, right time, that we want to take this out and to other industries, not just IT. And we're making headway because we have Apollo Hospitals, we have Welspun Industries, we have Vedanta Resources. I mean, these are very hardcore industrial companies who are coming on to Future Skills Prime and saying, we want to do this. We want to learn. We want to give this to all our employees. So I think the future is bright. The platform is available for anyone who wants to use it. It's free to access. So it's no advertisement for me to say futureskillsprime.in. Please visit and take advantage, because we've all put it together for you all to use. All the content has come from industry, from our providers. NASSCOM does no content creation. We rely on our industry and our partners to give it all. So collaboration, name of the game. TASC and AICTE are really very key members, and there are many such like them. State governments are also coming in. Karnataka is putting up a policy. Maharashtra, I'm meeting the IT secretary tomorrow. So, and Srikanth, actually, they're all wanting to copy you. And they say, like, if Telangana is doing this and if Karnataka is doing this, why can't we? So thank you very much for doing the FOMO. I think it's great. So I think it's going to be good.
It's truly music to ears, especially when you're in the industry, when you hear that there is so much happening. And when we are scrambling for skilled manpower, I think it's really heartening to know that there is so much happening. I know that the time has been short, but I think we did cover some very, very critical and salient points towards the skilling landscape. And I hope this has been a great learning and also an eye-opener to our listeners, to our viewers. And we would have a great future going forward, and especially with skilled manpower. Manpower is our strength. India relies on its manpower. Jai Hind. I guess let's look forward to a great future ahead. And thank you really so much, all panelists, for patiently answering my questions and also being patient in terms when I interrupted. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Delightful conversation.
Thank you.